Great. We're live, Chris. Thanks so much for taking the time to sit down and chat about the new relationship between CDI and BigPanda. Really excited to talk about a few things, right? Like everything leading up to your decision to look into AIOps and modern event management. What kind of weighed into the decision, and then some pretty cool results as well. So super excited to get into it. Just a quick intro for everyone viewing at home. My name's Hansel Akers. I'm a Regional Vice President of Sales Engineering at BigPanda. Been with BigPanda, crazy to say, about 3 years now, and kind of come from an observability background. SolarWinds by way of acquisition with another company that I was with, but really excited to have the conversation today. So do you mind just giving us a quick intro about kind of your role, background, and your CDI journey?
Yeah, and thanks for having me today. I appreciate it. Looking forward to the conversation. I came to CDI as part of an acquisition of high availability about 2.5 years ago. I can't believe it's been that long already. CDI has been around for about 25 years. Started out in the garage building IT systems, doing the traditional VAR reselling of systems, right? About 3 years ago, they made a very strategic decision to partner with One Equity Partners to get VC funding on the back end because they had a unique strategy around the direction that IT was going. And then over the past 2 years, so we've made 6 strategic acquisitions, high availability being one of them. Plan B, Candoris, Kintyre, we've been through a bunch of them. But they were all purchased based upon cultural fit, geographical diversity, or specific skills that we were trying to augment within the stack itself. Organizations are looking to, one of my favorite quotes from Einstein is, the mark of genius is making the complicated simple, not the other way around. So we've seen a lot of our clients looking to consolidate the vendors and the partners that they're working with to create operational efficiencies in their environment. So if you look at CDI's market strategy, we have a foundational item of our hybrid cloud infrastructure. So everything has to run on a system. You have to have IT assets out there to run your applications. Built on top of that is our security pillar. So security is embedded in everything we do. We have a digital workspace initiative, how people talk to people. How am I doing instant messaging, telephony, chat, email, all those things go into that. Digital workflow, the Salesforce, ServiceNow integrations that we're doing from a business application perspective. Intelligent observability, so how do we keep an eye on everything that's going on? How do we see the metrics? How do we see the telemetry data? How do we understand the deviations to normal in an environment so we can correct that and make adjustments? And then our app modernization pillar. So how do we take those existing 3-tiered architectures and create a more containerized model for them, reducing the blast radius in the event that there is a deviation to normal, right? So about a year ago, we formed the office of the CTO. My job is the Octo, I'm the divisional CTO in charge of our modern IT operations, so MITO.
MITO.
It's a fancy way of saying managed services, but in my opinion, it's an evolution of the practice, and I'm sure we'll get into that in a little bit more detail.
Absolutely.
So CDI today, we have employees in 40 of the 50 states. We have employees in 3 different countries. We basically are from Maine to Miami.
Okay.
In any of those areas. We also have an office outside of London in Slough, England. We just started CDI India for some staff augmentation for 24/7 follow the sun support and engineering augments. So we've been growing like crazy, and there's no signs of it slowing down.
I love it. There's so much goodness in there that I think is an awesome intro, because I think we're going to be covering so much of what you just talked about that CDI is involved with. So really appreciate that background. So you talked a little bit about specific geographies and some of the regions. It's awesome. It sounds like you're growing fast. We actually recently opened up a London office as well, so we're heading over that way as well.
We'll have to grab a pint sometime.
Absolutely, yeah. Can you just give us a little more information about like specific services you provide? What does your customer base look like today for MITO? And then maybe just a little bit about your overall vision for it.
So if you look at CDI's customer base, we're very vertically agnostic, right? We have clients in every vertical out there, whether it's pharma, life sciences, higher ed, legal, manufacturing. We do that because we stay out of the application spaces. Applications are where verticals begin to fragment. Now, granted, we are based in New York, so we have a heavy dose of financial services organizations that we work with, but we also have a lot of life sciences and pharmaceutical clients. So we're dealing with CFR 21 Part 11 for validated systems. We're dealing with HIPAA and high tech, GLB, like every regulatory requirement that's out there, we end up having to match and maintain those standards across the board.
Impressive.
So it's kind of an interesting place to be at times because you're always looking at all the different standards and then trying to build your practice around meeting the most stringent of those.
Absolutely. Yeah, some of my background too is in healthcare. So HIPAA, high tech, high trust, all that fun stuff. But yeah, I mean, we deal with a wide variety of customers ourselves, industry agnostic, as you said as well. But okay, so I'm excited to get into it. I also love that you talked a little bit about like the CDI VAR business because we're also great partners too. So I've had a blast getting to kind of know your organization, but also all those folks in New York that I get to visit with so frequently. So before we really get into it, I wanted to just talk about some metrics from the recent evaluation and then go live, and then I want to circle back to them and talk about kind of all the underlying goodness of it. So reduction in tickets for you all in week 1 of the trial was actually over 50%.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, it was exactly 51% reduction in incident tickets being created in the system.
All right.
And we've talked about this before, right? So in my world, I separate alerts from incidents. So an alert is any deviation to normal in an environment, right? So we standardize on Logic Monitor as our monitoring platform. So we're doing things like dynamic thresholds, synthetic transactions through the environment, looking for those deviations to normal. We funnel them in through BigPanda to do event correlation, event enrichment, eliminating the false positives, if you will. You have a switch go down. I don't need 25 alerts saying that the 24 devices that were connected to it and the switch are down. Right. So now you're sifting through those. So we've seen, like I said, about a 51% reduction in the incidents being created within the platform. And it's funny because you judge your operations team, your tech ops team, based upon the number of alerts that you're getting, right? How well are they tuning the platform to allow you to have the earliest warning sign around those deviations to normal? And then you work on the engineering side as how well are they reducing the time to return services to normal once the incident is created. So it's the same metrics that we're looking at or the same data points, but we're using them in 2 different ways to drive different outcomes.
Yeah, I love that too. Like it's the reason we choose to focus on alerts as well, right? Like we're not ingesting metrics or logs, but alerts because it dictates changes in expected behavior and usually dictates action that needs to be taken by somebody to fix something or a machine to fix something. But no, that's very helpful to provide some of that context. So I think that was week 1. So basically 5 days. So we integrated with Logic Monitor, and then within 5 days, I think we saw those numbers, which was really, really cool. And then
those numbers have actually gotten better since then because of the tuning of the system over time, right? So crawl, walk, run methodology on getting the system up and running, so therefore you're not missing any, true positives, and making sure that you're responding to those incidents in a timely fashion. So
absolutely. I think you're leading me right to it. But I think
apologies.
Now it's like, I think it was like 4,000 incidents, and I'm not saying actionable incidents a day, but just like issues, let's call them issues, down to about 250 incidents or issues a day now with BigPanda. So that's a very, very high compression percentage, but even actionable, I believe, is upwards of 65 or 70% reduction now, which is just really, really cool. We'll talk a lot about that, but I just wanted to start off with that because I think that's really cool because we do stress time to value and getting value out to our customers so fast, and I love to see that CDI was able to experience that.
It's funny because BigPanda, one of the things that's interesting about the organization and the product that you guys have out there is, unfortunately, too many times organizations wait to implement it until after the pain is so immense on their side that they're behind the 8 ball, right? They're playing catch up, and they don't realize that if they they implement these type of technologies up front, it allows them to scale their staff and allows their staff to then focus in on the areas of the business that matters. One of my favorite quotes is from a CIO of a client of ours who, when they migrated everything over to CDI and we were taking care of the monitoring, management, escalation services within their ecosystem, his quote was that, CDI has given me the opportunity to elevate my staff within the business. Mm-hmm. Whether or not I'm successful is no longer CDI's concern. That's mine. But at least now I have the opportunity to do so. And he's grown his business, he's expanded into different areas, he's allowed his people to focus in on reaching out to the lines of business to understand what challenges they have instead of sifting through 4,000 alerts looking for the 250 incidents that need to be addressed.
Right. That's awesome feedback. I'm thinking about it too from the perspective of like event management being sort of a foundation of AIOps. So we're doing a lot of really cool stuff now, and I was mentioning to you earlier that I got together with Richie yesterday, and we were talking a lot about some of the stuff that's not being used yet, like in BigPanda, where I think we can continue to grow the value. And one of them is like our unified analytics platform, which actually provides a lot of that context. So like, where's my value coming from? Which alerts are high quality, medium quality, low quality? Which ones are being worked, actioned, maybe just being sent in and then ultimately just resolving and nobody working them? So to
those
build a
transient alerts
understand.
are a bit of a challenge, right? So when you're dealing with problem management over time, how do you identify those incidents that, they're not really incidents so much, but there's those alerts that happen every 4 hours, every 6 hours, every 12 minutes. And if you can eliminate those, you eliminate a lot of the noise, and I'm no longer looking for work to do. I'm getting a list of the actionable items that will actually make a meaningful benefit to the org.
Right. Identifying your lowest mean time between failures, candidates for automation, some of that stuff.
One of the greatest things that everyone sort of resonates with, right, and I refer to this all the time, is we have now reduced what I affectionately call our mean time to innocence. And the mean time to innocence in every organization, and I'm a network guy by default, right? So ones and zeros, it's always the network's fault, right? They are the de facto first person to be blamed, right? Something goes wrong, it's the network's fault. We drop so many cellular calls, and everyone's like, I must have just lost the network. And they just move on, like it's expected behavior, and it's really not. So once the networking guys have identified the fact that it's no longer their fault, the next group that we blame are the database, right? Oh, if it's not the network, it's got to be the database. Let's bring in the DBAs. And so the network guy spends 20 minutes trying to prove his innocence. Then the DBA comes in and he spends 20 minutes proving his innocence. And 40 minutes have gone by and we haven't actually begun to investigate the actual incident that's going on. So by eliminating those, consolidating the incidents down, enriching the alerts that we're getting to our operations team, we have taken that mean time to innocence from 40 minutes down to seconds. Like, nope, we've added this automation on the back end where you get these alerts, it enriches the data, it eliminates the false positives, runs the automation scripts on the back end, and provides the engineers with the data they need to immediately start returning the services to normal.
Absolutely. We hear it all the time. Everyone joins a bridge call, and I use mean time to innocence all the time, and somebody puts their hands up, wasn't me, can I drop now? And ultimately you're hopefully left with the right person on the call to fix the issue, but...
Every now and again you got to call someone back on the bridge, right? Like, hey, you dropped too soon.
It's nice to be able to shift focus from mean time to innocence to mean time to mobilize. Like, let's get the right person based on this valuable context we brought in, involved immediately in real time to start working some of this. So with all of that, we're going to definitely dig into a lot of that a lot more. It's really, really good context. What was your approach to AIOps and event management before BigPanda?
Manual.
Okay.
Manual in every way, shape, and form. CDI is the collection of several different organizations that have been put together for a strategic purpose over the past several years. As we brought those organizations together, everyone running a manual process within their MITO managed services practices was able to sustain that level of incident management. When you bring them all together, and now you have 6 times the size of the organization that you're dealing with, you have 12 times the size of the noise, you have 24 times the level of obfuscation of data within the environment, right? So it's very exponential as things grow. As we were bringing these together, we looked back and said, yeah, what's the next most important thing we need to address? And it was getting an AIOps engine in play to allow us to consolidate all that data, give it a single version of the truth, if you will. Something else we talked about earlier today, right? Is, how do I know what the truth is? How do I know where to look for it? So, in hindsight, I would have loved to have done this 3 years earlier, but all things in their time. So it was the right decision at the right time for CDI. It allowed us to scale the business. It allows us to grow and create a better, predictable outcome.
Yeah, I'm so excited for I think the theme of this is going to be, I can't wait to talk about this more, because everything you bring up, I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, we're gonna cover that soon. So I'm really excited to talk through some of that, because I think it's something you all do really, really well. As you're going through some of these strategic initiatives, M&A activity, you're bringing in different tools, and it becomes very tough to make sure you have some sort of truth that you can reference.
And what's interesting, if you look at IT as a whole, right, and the direction the industry's been going for a while now, every internal IT organization is faced with 6 challenges, as I've defined them internally, right? One is creating value for the organization, right? Eliminating lazy assets, getting the most value out of the applications that they have, and creating a predictable, consistent value prop for the organization, whether that's CapEx, OpEx, whether that's whatever value that is. Then you have a performance variable that has to be adjusted, right? How do I maintain that predictable performance for my end users so they can continue to do their job? There's a data analytics element that's come into IT over the past several years, that how do I get more data from my data? How do I understand my install base? How do I make better decisions based upon the information that I already have? There's an agility component to this thing, right? So as we talk about app modernization and reducing the blast radius and being able to make small incremental agile changes over time to increase the functionality of the apps that we're using. There is obviously a security element to this whole thing. The proliferation of ransomware over the past decade has been astounding, right? We've been doing disaster recovery for clients for 20 some odd years. I can count on one hand the number of times we've actually had real full-blown disaster recovery efforts that have gone on. We're helping clients recover 2-3 times a month from ransomware that aren't taking advantage of some of the advanced security features that we have. And that last area is governance, right? So if I look at those 6 components of what we do, and then being able to tie them back into our operations, being able to mitigate those false positives so we can actually handle those events and then move applications to where it makes the most sense for a hybrid cloud strategy. And they all tie together, like, the theory of constraints, right? Once you fix one bottleneck, it's not that you ever fixed the bottleneck, you just moved it to a different section of the organization. So being able to do bottleneck identification internally before we make substantial investments.
Yeah, it's a big focus of ours, so it's aligning very, very well with the stuff that you're dealing with, getting more, as you said, more data out of your data. Huge focus of ours right now.
I mean, that's one of the reasons why the partnership's been so good for both sides, right? I mean, we have the same strategic direction. We both see where the puck is going, and we're going to be there when it gets there.
Right. So, kind of going back to what led you to at least look at AIOps tools when you made the decision to look into it. Maybe other than our great relationship as partners that may have said, hey, you should look at this tool, they're pretty good at what they do. Or maybe one of our sales reps banging down your door to try to get a call with you.
Well, they did that also, but the relationship didn't hurt.
I figured. So was it an active initiative that you said, hey, we need to go find this? Was it maybe coming from bottom up where your team's saying, hey, we're inundated with alerts, we're inundated with incidents, we need to find a better way to do things? So what kind of brought this, I guess, to the forefront of, I'm sure, all of the other projects you had going on at the same time?
It was funny because it ended up being kind of a meet in the middle kind of initiative.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, I like it.
So the bottom up guys going, I have too many alerts, I have too many tickets, I have too much work to get done. And then from a top down perspective, looking at it going, I am having trouble managing the line of business because I'm not getting the real data I need to do this. So it was the same problem statement, but from 2 different lenses.
I like it, yeah.
And then, being able to insert BigPanda kind of in the middle there and allow us to focus those details gives our executive team on the managed services MITO team the ability to look at the data and see what is the real actionable items, how many hours are being spent, what's the mean time to resolution, do we have training issues, do we have support issues, do we have response issues, and then from the downstream, they're not just closing tickets out because they're false positives. All the tickets that they're getting are actionable items that are making an impact.
Right.
At the end of the day, everyone wants to make an impact on their job, right? They want to move the peanut forward. They want to make changes that, make the organization better.
Yeah. So was this a named project? I love that you kind of were both, I love meet in the middle, where you're probably hearing, and this is what we're hearing from everybody, but we need to do a lot more with a lot less. So you're talking about let's be more efficient, let's help the team be more efficient, not be inundated underwater constantly, but the team, of course, surfacing it as well. So
I make this joke all the time. I've never seen or never met anyone in IT that actually said, I'm done. I'm finished.
Yeah.
All my projects are complete. I've got nothing else to do. All the tickets are closed. We're done. I've got nothing to do. We all have too much work. We all have too many projects. We all have juggling priorities that we need to maintain. And those priorities are constantly shifting. And, for better or worse, it's changed over the past decade, right? We had the downturn 6, 7, 8 years ago, whenever that was, and organizations slimmed down.
Right.
Yeah, there was a bit of a hiring boom during COVID, but that was really in high-end tech sectors, if you will. But organizations themselves didn't just start bringing people in. So they have the same amount of work, they have larger organizations, they have more work to get done, and they need better tools in order to do it, right? Mm-hmm. So if you look across any organization, it's the people, it's the process, it's the tools they have in order to make the changes.
Right.
So you have to evaluate all three of those. And, we looked at it and said, we have great people, we have great processes. We're kind of missing this technology in the middle here. And went out, did an evaluation, did a bit of a bake-off. Nothing against the others that we did the bake-off with, but at the end of the day, you guys were selected, and it's been great.
Awesome. That's great feedback. Yeah, we hear it all the time. Just do a lot more with a lot less. And you mentioned and kind of walk through, I think, your components or pillars that you're focused on. Mm-hmm. One of those was risk mitigation. And I think part of mitigating risk is if you have all your folks just focused on fighting fires constantly, what about all those projects you have, initiatives, whether it's hybrid cloud or other strategic projects? You guys are doing a lot of M&A, right? Bringing on other customers, making sure everything's speaking a common language, single source of the truth. So it's pulling folks away from those sort of activities to kind of take the business a step further.
I have a lot of conversations with clients about the difference between good risk and bad risk, right? And not all risk is bad. There is good risk to an organization. So risk is a combination of a threat and a vulnerability. If you only have one of those two categories, there's not really a risk.
Right.
Once you've identified the risk to an organization, then there's only 4 things that happen with risk. You can accept it, you can mitigate it, you can transfer it, or you could be ignorant of it. Mm-hmm. And the only one that's not acceptable is the 4th one. Right? So once you've identified the risk and you understand what it is, then you have to decide, am I going to mitigate it, am I going to transfer it, am I going to accept it? Once the people, the process, and the technology is at a point that you can comfortably say we have mitigated the risk to the organization, whatever remains is still good risk, right? It's still risk, but it's good because the people, the process, and the technologies outweighs the remaining risk.
Right.
When you have bad risk is when the people, the process, or the technology fall short of the risk that you've identified to the organization, mm-hmm. and you need to make some investments internally, and that's something that we're constantly focusing in on, right?
Yeah.
Security is a process.
Yeah. So with all those varying projects and everything your team was working on, how did you go about, I guess, were there a couple projects that you were prioritizing, say 22 into 23? AIOps was part of that, but how do you prioritize all of those varying projects? Is it pane? Is it taking your business to the next level? How are you looking at it from your perspective?
We recently hired a chief human resource officer, actually promoted from within.
Okay, awesome.
we do things like Bonusly to do employee recognition. Like, hey, you did a great job. Here's a couple of points, and you can redeem those points for tchotchkes and stuff from the CDI swag store and things like that, right? It's kind of cool. I actually donate all mine to a charity that I love, so it works out well for me.
Very nice.
We put a lot of emphasis in on the culture of CDI and making sure that the people are our greatest asset. We have a lot of good technology, we have a lot of good partners, but at the end of the day, the people are what makes the difference in the organization. So you have to listen to them.
Yeah.
And when they're coming back going, I'm swamped, I'm overloaded, you know, we've integrated 6 companies in the matter of 18 months, and now I'm dealing with 6 different systems, and we did a great job of taking those and narrowing them down to one. And we identified that single version of the truth. And it wasn't a top-down, this is what CDI has always done, this is what we will always do moving forward method.
Right.
It was, let's evaluate the tools and the technology and the processes that we have, pick the best one for where we're going, and then migrate all the other organizations into that one. So over the past years, we've adopted standards from every one of the organizations that's been acquired. My role has changed. I now sit in the office of the CTO, and I look out over the hood of the car to see where we're going from a managed services, modern IT ops perspective.
Right.
The entire Octo, which 6 of us now in it, 7, are all from different organizations.
Yeah.
Right? So, you know, whether it's Felix or Will Souter or Brian Kennedy or myself or Russell Pope, like, we've all been pulled in from different areas, and we all have different perspectives on the industry and where things are going.
Yeah.
And we can have healthy debates as to what we should do next and what is the next most important thing.
That's great. I love that you're, of course, willing to listen to the most important asset in your people, right? Like, they're surfacing something that is really tough, right? And you're growing so fast. Awesome problem to have.
It is.
Also comes with a lot of challenges, right? So it's just amazing to hear that, like, the people are creating some sort of groundswell of, hey, this is a lot of pain. We're here to you know, make the business better, but we need better technology to contribute to that. So that's awesome. That's good feedback. So I want to kind of circle back to the metrics. So we'll just use, I think, about 65% actionable ticket reduction. How do you think that impacted your business specifically? What did that allow you to do from a business perspective? Is it, you know, make sure to focus on all those different processes from all the different folks that are coming from different businesses to grow that? Like, I guess, how did it help the business?
Well, the obvious answer is that it helped us identify, you know, the processes and allowed us to streamline those things and everything else. The interesting way that I kind of look at this is when you have all of that reduction, it allows you to identify opportunities for automation and orchestration when you have known factual root cause incidents within the system itself. So again, if I get 25 alerts because a switch goes down, great, I got 24 devices and the switch itself.
Right.
It's very difficult to automate remediation efforts around which one of the 25 am I looking at. So as you simplify the environment, you streamline everything, and you narrow it down to that one root cause, now you can create your control factors around it. You can do your variable testing, you can do your automated scripting, your remediation efforts,
Right.
before it ever goes to a human.
Yep.
Right? And there's gonna be areas where that has to be escalated to an engineer for unique situations, and that's great. And you wanna get it to them as quickly as possible. But you also wanna take care of the basic blocking and tackling before it gets to them. Can you ping the DNS server? Can you trace route out of the network, right? I'm an old network geek, so I always go back to the networking stuff. But, you know, those basic fundamental steps need to be addressed, so therefore they can do the higher level remediation efforts.
So I think you may have just answered this pretty well, but what is...
Then ditto.
What is...
Just go with the same answer.
What does AIOps look like in the future? Is it truly, like, it sounds like, really pushing towards autonomous operations? Your AIOps platform should serve as sort of like a foundational piece to make sure automation is successful and doesn't fail based on different data structures. And
It has, and we've been doing a lot with a lot of different organizations about infrastructure as code and helping them modernize their infrastructure. So I'm not hitting next reboot. Cool, I built a server, right? So we're pushing that out through infrastructure as code to eliminate technical debt in the environment. So therefore, when I do get the single version of the truth from an incident and a deviation to normal, the systems that I'm reacting to are consistently deployed. So now I have consistency in my alerting, I have consistency in my deployment, and that makes the ability to automate those remediation efforts, the troubleshooting efforts, the data collection efforts, so much simpler, right? And again, it's all about simplifying the IT infrastructure. IT gets complicated all on its own. I don't need to help it.
Right. So any new other innovative projects that you're working on now that you have an AIOps solution? Anything that you're shifting your focus towards?
We've been doing a ton of stuff. I actually wrote them down because I figured at some point you were going to give me this question.
I love it.
In the past 12 months, I think we've gotten 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 7, 8, 9, somewhere in there, Partner of the Year awards for the innovation, the advancements that we're doing for our organization, whether it's, VMware on AWS or Logic Monitor's MSP Partner Innovator of the Year award. We just recently were told that, we've been awarded the VMware America's Cloud Innovation and SaaS Transformation Award. That was the last one last week. These things are coming in so fast and furious, I have to write them down or I forget what they are. The one that I did notice was missing from the list is we haven't gotten a BigPanda award yet.
Yeah,
I'm sure that's coming at some point.
That's why I have my laptop on. I'm pinging those guys.
But being able to do a lot more with infrastructure as code, a lot more app modernization, helping clients understand that a hybrid cloud strategy is a journey that they go on, right? And cloud is an operating model. And then you have to change the way you're internally running your processes to take full advantage of it. Every organization we work with wants to digitally transform, do business transformation.
Right.
Very few of them start out by saying we need to do operational transformation so we can build upon it.
Right.
And that's where a lot of our clients are coming to us going, Chris, we don't have the time, the patience, the skill set, the history to be able to deploy the operational transformation that CDI already has a model built around. Let's move our infrastructure, our applications, our monitoring, our day-to-day operations into your ecosystem so we can immediately jumpstart the digital transformation that they're doing on top of it, the business transformation, pick your buzzword from a marketing perspective, right? That's where we've been focusing a lot of our efforts, is laying that foundation and then the hybrid cloud strategy. So the way you monitor, manage, and maintain an infrastructure should be independent of where it physically lives. I don't care if the app's running on the moon, as long as I can get to it. Like, the way you monitor, manage, and maintain it should be the same. So a lot of focus in around our transparency for our clients. So being able to go back and go, here's all the data we have, here's all the data you have, and it's the same data. Right? I'm a big believer in, I wouldn't allow an employee to obfuscate data from me. Why would I allow my partner or my MSP to obfuscate data? Right? Increasing our responsiveness. How quickly can we get back to a client? Who calls who matters in the MSP world? Right? And then obviously you have to have those relationships with the client. You have to build a trust over time. And that just, those three areas are the foundations of our managed services, modern IT ops practice. And that's proliferated through our digital practice. That's proliferated through our professional services group. We're out there. We're holding in-person events. We're getting together. We're having dinner. We're understanding the challenges and the problems that organizations are having, and then jointly coming up with, all right, here's what I've seen in these organizations. Here's what I've seen. Here's the pros. Here's the cons. And it's funny because if you look at those Partner of the Year awards, half of them are competitors of each other. Right? And what that tells me is that we're doing the right thing for our client. We're saying, hey, I understand the benefits of this. I understand the benefits of that. And this is the right choice for your organization to move you where you want to go.
Right. By the way, you speaking of meeting people in person, this is nice. It's not It's not remote. We're actually together.
Yeah, we actually got together today
and drove up.
Did this in person. It's nice.
No, I love all of that. That's really exciting stuff. So if I were to try to piece together, and again, the relationship's actually pretty early, so the results are really cool. But reduction in tickets, do you think those folks, maybe your L2s, L3s, your SMEs, are those folks, historically maybe they were being pulled into bridge calls and firefighting, like are they now able to go work on these hybrid cloud initiatives, make sure they're focusing more on the customer to build relationships? Do you think that the business is being impacted that way, where those folks are able to kind of focus on more of the strategic?
Here's what it gives people the ability to do, right? So one of the reasons why we rebranded our managed services to Modern IT Ops a couple of years ago is traditional managed services are very reactive, right? You call me, you ask me to do something, I do it. Thanks, right? There, great, I'm a managed services organization. Organizations are trying to move from reactive to proactive. So now I'm doing preventative maintenance, I'm doing proactive tests, I'm scheduling those. I don't think that goes far enough. So by leveraging AIOps and eliminating the noise in the platform, it frees up cycles. And in those cycles, it allows them to focus in on predictive behaviors within an environment. So how do I get to the point where a client is calling me up going, guys, you haven't escalated anything to me in 3 months. What's going on? You guys aren't doing your job anymore? It's like, no, we're predictively remediating the events before they happen.
Right.
And here's the transparent list of all the things we've done that have prevented you pain that you may not have ever seen coming.
Yeah.
Right?
Enjoy the extra sleep.
Enjoy the extra sleep. You don't have to get up on a bridge call at 2 in the morning. My phone's still ringing. We still run, I mean, my military background won't let me get out of this, but our operations staff every second Tuesday, don't quote me on this because they might have changed it to a different Tuesday, they run a P0 bridge call. And it's a test call. And they record the names of everyone who joined, they send out. And not that I want to use that call ever.
No.
But you still have to test it. You have to test it. You have to test it,
Yeah.
right? And make sure that it's working. So therefore, when you do need it,
Ready.
It's not, oh, what do we do here? It's like, oh yeah, we do this every month. Here we go. Let's go.
Yep. Perfect practice makes perfect. There's one other thing that I wanted to talk about, and we actually kind of kept circling back to it a little bit, and it's because I mentioned it earlier, but I think CDI does this so well. What we're hearing so often is folks are being asked to reduce SaaS spend, and they come to us and they have 50, 60 different monitoring tools that they're using, right? And maybe not using them as well as they could, but the whole way down from the CFO, they're being told, hey, like, which of these do I no longer need? Which one's not providing value? And that's something we're delivering on. But I'm curious to just hear, is that something, one, I guess you're hearing across all the folks that you talk to, you guys do it well. So it's not necessarily someone's probably yelling at you to get rid of tool spend because it's pretty impressive. But is that something you're hearing across the market? Because we've shifted to start to identify, and I think there's value in this too, but alerts that maybe could be higher quality, that need to be actioned, that aren't being actioned, some of that behavior. Is that something you're hearing?
It's something we're hearing, it's something we're seeing, it's something we're helping our clients correct over time, and we've been doing it for years now. So we do, not to sound egotistical, but I think we do an exceptional job of tools rationalization within our clients' environment. So I jokingly say you might have 10 monitoring tools and you're monitoring 10% of your environment with each one of the tools. Well, yes, you have 100% coverage, but you have operational inefficiencies in the way you're managing those platforms, and you have different skill sets and you have different pockets of information. And then you have key man risk issues within your organization because, Timmy knows this system and Mary Jane knows that system, and none shall the two talk. So we do a good job of going in and working with our clients to identify the outcomes that they're trying to get, what tools do they have, and then rationalizing those tools down to the least common denominator over time. So maybe one tool will address 80% of the issues that you have and 80% of the business requirements. Great, let's use one tool for another 12% and another tool for the last 8%. But now I only have 3 to deal with instead of 10. And then operationally, I'm saving money, right? Because I'm not spending those renewals every 12 months, every 36 months. I'm getting better bang for my buck, and I'm getting a better version of the truth that are then actionable within my environment. So maybe I'm old school, but I hate lazy assets in my environment. If I have an asset, I want to get the most value out of it. So we spend a lot of time doing tools rationalization and creating roadmaps for our clients to drive those outcomes.
Yeah, I mean, it's impressive to see not only the way you're doing it and doing it successfully with all of your customers, but you internally, I think, the tools that we integrate with are all very well rationalized.
Well, you take
getting the
CDI,
most
you
value
acquire
out of
6
them.
additional companies.
Right.
Now all of a sudden you have 7 sets of every tool.
Yep.
So, we drank our own champagne.
Right.
We went through and we learned by going through the process. We stubbed our toe on the coffee table a couple of times and we moved the coffee table, right? So
Right.
we kind of
Yep.
figured this out internally on ourselves, and then we're taking that knowledge and that value that we've gotten and distributing it out to our clients. So therefore they're getting the same benefits that we had.
Right. And we definitely at BigPanda take a very domain agnostic approach, right? So if you do have maybe 3 tools or 10 tools and maybe they do have a distinct purpose, it's all about creating a foundational data model, data structure, so that you don't have varying sources of the truth and things speaking different languages.
I was just working with a client the other day, and by all account, they had 14 different monitoring platforms around the globe. And all of them would send individual alerts to their ticketing system. Happened to be ServiceNow. Cool, pick your poison. One of the first things that we talked about was implementing an AIOps engine in between, redirecting all of their alerting into an AIOps engine, doing event correlation, event alert, just discovery, so therefore we can eliminate the false positives in the environment, and then streaming that into their incident management system, so therefore they were getting a single version of the truth. Over the next 24, 36 months, let's look to consolidate all of those monitoring tools down into 2 or 3, so therefore we can get those efficiencies. But we're actually leveraging BigPanda as a bridge to get us to the tools rationalization, and in the meantime getting some value out of that platform like on day one.
Right. Huge use case of ours now, right? Like we've had some of our customers retire tools entirely because they realized one tool was sending the exact same alerts about 30 seconds later than the other solution.
It's
that was
amazing
in
how many
place.
times that happens.
Right. And so, or reducing your alert spend and stuff like that. But that's all I had for today. I really appreciate you taking the time.
No, this was
to
great. I
sit
appreciate
down.
the partnership, and
Absolutely.
it's been great.
Yeah, it's been really great. But thanks again for getting together.
Thank you.